Good morning. We are back here for our second pond build of the year. We got another 11 by 16 pond going in here. And actually, this one is kind of cool because we built a waterfall for this customer last year. You can see the waterfall from the back patio here. Go over some of these key viewpoints here. Table here off this large patio, table here. The main view that we're looking for from this pond is actually sunroom right here, the view out there, and then the kitchen window. So when we put in the waterfall, this was the only window that we really couldn't capture with that waterfall. So we're gonna face the pond's waterfall directly in the middle of the kitchen here. I'm inside, I'm taking a look at some of these viewpoints from in here. This is that kitchen window, and that waterfall looks centered right on this window, which is exactly what we're looking for. Then if we come down here to the sunroom, you can see that our pond is right in the middle of this sunroom.
Hey, it's Mike from Oasis Water Gardens. From backyard ponds to breathtaking waterfalls, I'll show you the art of bringing natural beauty right to your home.
All right, the shape of the pond is now sprayed out. So we're gonna now start by scoring this whole thing out so that we have the nice shape, and then bring in the excavator.
So the first thing we always like to do is to just really mark out the shape of this excavation. Paint is very easy to lose when you're sitting up in the excavator and dirt is starting to move everywhere. So this really helps us to define those edges. You can also see we're starting that plumbing line, the trench for the plumbing line, as well as the biofalls. It's really important to get these things in early on the build so that we can build our berm around that stuff.
We got the edges of the pond marked out now. We scored out all the edges with the shovels. It's gonna make it easier with the machine to hold the shape. And now we're digging the hole for our 6,000 biofalls. We want the lip of this to sit about 20 inches above water level. So we're digging this down here, and then we're running this trench here to run our plumbing line to where that skimmer is gonna go. That way when we start digging the pond, we can just start backfilling around where that 6,000 is for the berm.
So you can see right here, I'm using the laser level, and what we're doing is we're getting the grade for the water level on this pond, and then we're gonna adjust the laser to be 22 inches above water level. This way, when we set that 6,000 biofalls, we can make sure that it's at exactly the right height. In our experience, 22 inches is a great height for a waterfall in a flat yard where you're going to be using the pond excavation for the berm.
All right, our biofalls is set, and we have the plumbing line run down our trench so that we're ready to go for the actual excavation. So we get the biofalls set here. We have our laser set to 22 inches above water level, and now we're going to go up and check that against the lip. So we're right on there. This is 22 inches above where that water level is going to be. And then we're going to go ahead and berm up the entire area behind the biofalls to disguise it.
So one of the biggest challenges when you're working in a yard that's a little bit tighter is that we have to figure out where we're going to put all the dirt for the excavation so that we can actually drive our machine around and get to all the areas of the pond that we're going to need to set our boulders. So in this case, we created this sort of giant mountain of dirt. This was because we were going to need to drive the excavator back around the pond so that we could set the boulders on that side of the pond. The plan is to grade out the dirt and smooth this berm out to a nice gradual berm after all the boulders in the pond are set.
First shelf of the excavation is done. So you can see here, we got our first shelf down. We got our 6,000 biofalls right here, and we got the hole for the skimmer right there with our plumbing line coming through. So we're gonna be digging actually this black area, we're gonna be digging this down another 2 feet. This whole pond is going to be 3 feet deep. So everything you see marked inside that black line is gonna go down another 2 feet.
So for most of our ponds, we actually dig them at a depth of 2 feet, which works great for most people, despite a few comments on our videos. But this customer really wanted a deeper pond, so we settled on a 3-foot depth for this one. As we were digging this deeper section of the pond, we ran into a vein of sort of bedrock and shale. This wasn't the worst bedrock we've ever seen, but it certainly slowed down the excavation.
Digging was a little bit slower than we had hoped. We ran into a lot of shale and some sort of bedrock. You can see here, a lot of the second half of the excavation was just this rocky stuff. So every time we would dig down one scoop, the whole thing would sort of collapse, and so it just took quite a long time. You can see down here, we're now at around our 3-foot depth in the bottom section there. We got a 1-foot depth on this shelf here, and then there's our biofalls where the waterfall is going to come in. We also got our skimmer set to water level and backfilled, and we got our plumbing coming up here, and that's run to the biofall.
All right, now that the excavation is done, it's time to get our geotextile underlayment in. And then on top of that, we're putting our 45 mil EPDM liner. You can see us setting up the tarps here. That's because there was a bunch of rain coming in, and we want to make sure that that excavated dirt does not get soaked. That will turn it into mud and make it a nightmare to work with later on. You can see right here, we're starting that stacked slate wall in the bottom of the pond. So this is going to be that 2-foot stacked slate wall. And we're going to be doing some fish caves on the bottom right hand of the screen. We got 2 fish caves going into this area of the pond.
We are back out here Wednesday morning, finishing our wall in the bottom. We had a little bit of a rain delay. So right now we're looking at finishing this stacked wall in the deep 3-foot section of the pond. So we only got a little bit of that going. We're going to set a couple large boulders as well in a few spots here so that it ties in with the rest of the boulder work. You can see we actually have staged our 3/4 gravel and our 3/8 gravel that we backfill behind this stuff to really lock everything in place.
So building these stacked slate walls is a really slow and tedious process. A lot of the stone that you're getting from the quarry is not completely flat, so you have to adjust them numerous times. And then also you want to keep in mind the front face of that wall, so we want to make sure that this looks really nice. You can also see we have some of those bigger boulders that we set into there, and that's just going to really make the whole project fit together. If you just do a stacked slate wall in the bottom, sometimes it can feel like it doesn't fit the pond. So when you can work in a few of those big boulders, it's going to really tie everything together with those big boulders that we'll be setting all around the edge of the pond as coping stones later on.
We're getting close on this stacked slate wall. Let me show you how we recessed a few of these lights into there, which is going to look super cool when this thing is on at night. We're down here in the bottom of the pond. You can see we got our slate wall here. We have our dual fish caves recessed back in here. And then you can see Matthew did some really nice rock work here to come around this light. And this is going to really illuminate this deep 3-foot section of the pond. And then you can see the fish have a place to go and hide in here and in here.
All right, so we got that stacked slate wall done in the bottom, and now we're going to go around and start to set some of our big coping stones. First one we're setting, you can see us digging out. We actually needed to dig out about 8 inches here so that we could get this stone to sit exactly where we wanted it.
We are about to set the biggest boulder on this project. This measures 25 inches this way and 44 inches this way. It's sort of hard to picture on the camera, but I would say this is easily north of 1,000 pounds.
But yeah, over here it's like 6, no, 4.
That right side is really low. From up there I could tell it's this actually that needs to be shimmed right here.
Okay.
That one is right here.
Like if we had a 16.
So you can see a large boulder like this took a lot of time and effort to set. There's a few things that we're looking for when we're setting this. Number one, we want to make sure that this looks level. This is going to be designed as an interaction stone, so people are going to be walking on this, sitting on this, so we want to make sure that it looks really nice from that standpoint. And then we want to make sure that it's at least a few inches above the grade surrounding the pond. This is going to allow us to pack dirt up against the back of that, hide the liner, and make it look really nice.
What we're doing right now is we just set a large coping stone. We're going to take our laser level and see where the water level hits on that stone. So in our opinion, it's very important to make sure that water level is somewhere above the bottom of the stone. Okay, so right now we have the laser, which is hitting right about here on this stone. So now we know that when we fill this pond up, the water level is going to be right about where the bottom of that laser stick is on this rock, which is going to look awesome.
All right, here you can see those fish caves on the bottom of the pond. We went ahead and we glued up a bunch of moss to hide that little bit of plastic that was there. And now we're actually starting to build the waterfall here. So since we had quite a large grade to work with, we're actually backfilling with some rocks and just building up in steps to get out of the pond. We're also going to be taking our laser and shooting it as we set each one of these boulders so that we can really dial in the height of each waterfall coming into the pond. As we always do, we'd like to build the waterfall first before we finish setting all the rest of the coping stones in the pond. That's going to give us access to all the boulders so that we can make sure we get the perfect sizes and shapes for the waterfall. We don't typically cut a lot of stones when we're doing these projects, but that particular one we needed to cut it so that it would fit in between our 2 frame boulders on the waterfall. Now you can see we're going around with our big boulders, and we're strategically placing these to try to accentuate some of the curves on this pond. Once we have all those big ones in place, we can then come back in with some of the smaller stuff, some of the Delaware 5-8s, and some of our smaller Pennsylvania boulders, and we can work them in between all of those big boulders, and that's going to really create the nice shape and curves that we're looking for in this pond.
All right, pond is almost finished and filling. Right now I am going to the Biofalls 6000, and I'm going to be rocking in the rock tray. Here you can see we have the 6000 Biofalls. We have our waterfall coming off here, and this is actually the rock tray right here. So we're going to put some Pennsylvania boulders and some 5-8 Delaware all around here to disguise this thing so that it actually looks like the water's just coming up out of a spring, and you won't actually see any of this plastic when we're finished.
So this is vital to really make sure that everything comes together on this pond. The last thing that you want to see when you're looking at this beautiful pond is plastic. So taking the time to go around and really make all the rocks in the rock tray look like they fit with the rest of the boulders is going to make a really big difference. We can also come back in at a later time, put some plants all through that rock tray, which really is nice because not only is that going to look good, but it's going to aid in the filtration of the pond. As all that water starts coming through there, those plants can help suck out some of those nitrates from the pond. You can see I'm actually going around and taking our foam gun and locking in those rocks in the back there. That way all the gravel that we put behind the rocks doesn't fall down into the filter over time. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe so you can follow along for some more incredible pond builds.